Not sure.
It's additional budget.
It's under
Sure.
Last page.
4.3A, Mary. It's further down. Yeah, it is true. It's about.
Yeah, he's got it right here, specific items, and then he wants. Yeah, do that.
John, I get what you're saying, and I kind of agree with it, but my only concern is, I feel like we're juggling 12 balls here tonight, and we're about to drop them all, because we're looking at this year's surplus of 700, possibly spending 400 of it. We're looking at the capital budget that we don't know what's going to happen with yet, and we're looking at next year's operating budget that is up for grabs too, and what's going to happen with that. And I don't know. I'm wondering if we could, and I don't particularly care whether we do or don't, but I'm thinking all three of those kind of interact with one another. Like there was
They
some.
do, but I'm trying to just move along with some items that we need to move along. See, there's 50 grand. If you don't start soon, you won't be able to spend it this year, and you'll be back to your Mr. Rapco's legal question, which I still don't agree with, but that's okay.
Well, my concern was, I want to make sure we have expenses in the FY17 budget that we can easily support and defend. And I talked to you before the meeting about the problem that we have here, as I see it, because when the budget committee looked at this last year, and I'll share this with you to let you know where the mindset is when they're reviewing the budgets, because I was participating. When we looked at the budget last year, and we were looking at the possible reductions you could make without, cutting a paper clip, we came up with over $1 million, and that's why we didn't increase the appropriation. You made those cuts and didn't cut a paper clip for the most part. You chose maybe to cut some things that we wouldn't have cut, but there was still some items in there that we would have cut further that wouldn't have harmed anything, that are contributing to this year's surplus. But you made a comment to me last year, and I agree with that totally, that last year, even with level funding them, because, I'll use this year as an example. In this year, if they were, I don't know how to describe this, okay, I'll use last year's, I guess. You had last year $24,661,844 for an adopted budget. Your expenditures were only $23,760 for the previous year. So automatically, because you were appropriated so much money and you didn't spend it all, you had available like $900,000 for the next year where you could shift those monies around. Like this year, we have $700,000 in a surplus because we budgeted for things we didn't need it for. So even if we were level funded, we're going to be able to increase the other line items with that $700,000.
That's what I'm doing. I'm using the 700 to do these items here that are,
Well, yeah, but you're doing it for this year. So if we do it for this year and don't budget it as an expense for next year, we're going to have the same problem the following year, as I see it.
Well, possibly, but these are things we've neglected for a number of years. If you look at some of these things, roof drain is leaking, the loading dock needs to be painted. I'm just looking at these items. Exterior doors need weather stripping. These are things you do once, and they're good for 10 years. I think we've just been neglecting them because we didn't have the fund. There's a whole laundry list of little just items here that, if it was my house, I'd be, taking care of it.
If I may, I think maybe holding off on this. This is later in the agenda. We do have it on the docket. So, and there are other discussions that go around with that. And I think, Mr. Lindbergh, you and I have had discussions with RIDE and
Yes.
just ourselves around the revolving fund. And to give everyone a 30-second version of it, the revolving fund is a new program under RIDE whereby you gain authorization from the town council to set up a fund under the school, not under the school committee, under the schools, and that fund goes to pay just for things like this. The benefit of that program is the town council authorizes that the schools receive reimbursement directly. You get 34% for anything that qualifies, as long as it's in your capital plan, and they pay that monthly instead of at project end. So I think everything that I see in Mr. Shaw's memo here are things that would qualify, would they not? Or we're not sure?
Honestly,
Are these too small?
I appreciate, yeah, exactly. Where I differentiates between maintenance
Okay.
and, I guess, major projects that address substantial changes. They would, I don't believe that we would, I know pretty positively we wouldn't get reimbursed for these.
Well, there were a few things, there's some of the larger ones, the ductwork and fans and that. I don't know if that's, whether that would fall under health and safety or,
Yeah, I mean, I could ask, but, the majority do fall into maintenance. And
okay.
I want to wait till we're done. Is there
No,
anything-
I'm done. No,
Madam Chair,
it was just a thought.
the only thing that I picked up on, and I'm not sure why it was said, but I'm not sure why, Mike, you would say that we budgeted we have $700,000 that we didn't need. I mean, Lisa just ran down how this occurred. I can recall back when we were setting the budget, there was a concern of the school committee that in order to balance the budget, we went from, I think, was it 130 on turnover allowance to 200,000? And the committee was very concerned about that we were attempting to go that high. I just feel like it's misleading when you say that, when we ran down this list of things and you say that, well, we didn't need the money. I think, I don't know, I guess you should, maybe you should give me tips on the stock market, Mike, because I couldn't have predicted these.
I'll use the Woonsocket area vocational school tuitions as an example.
Sure.
That was something we thought you could cut much greater than you did and
Based
reduce
on
much
what,
greater.
though, Mike?
Based on the fact that you had a declining enrollment of incoming students. It looked like several years ago you had a lot of special education students go to that school. In my opinion, I'm looking at it saying, why? Why is this happening that all of a sudden in this 1 year, so many special ed students are directed to that?
Sure.
And so they have not been going, and that program is no longer favorable, and your incoming classes is lower. You had 18 kids budgeted, but many of them were seniors. And so,
We
should.
budgeted real numbers, Mike. We budgeted what we
No,
knew
you
at the
you
time.
budgeted what you had, but I think you have to go the extra mile and say, okay, we have 18 kids this year, so should we budget for 18 kids next year if 10 of them are seniors and gonna graduate? Maybe we shouldn't. So, when we spoke about the possible potential reductions with Mary and John, that was one account that the budget committee had really felt should have been reduced more severely. So, I think that's when I say money you don't need, because you budgeted actual enrollment versus looking at the enrollment, figuring out how many kids do we have graduating, and what's been the new,
No, we did that.
well, I don't know how you, okay, so the
We
10,
moved the kids up, like we would take off.
See, guys, here's,
Yeah, Madam Chair, we're
let
getting away
me
from the-
step
we're getting away
back.
from the motion.
Let me step back for a moment here, right? I asked for the forecast because I want to know early on if we have a deficit or a surplus.
right.
And then when we have a surplus, I want to see that we can fund some things that need to be done that are really, and if we're going to sit here every time and just second guess what we didn't do a right forecast, I've never done a forecast that's been perfect, right? Because if I did, I'd be at, as he said, at the stock market. So that's why I look at this and say, we've got some money to spend here. Let's spend it on some of the things that we need. You know what I mean? Some of the needs that we've put off for a number of years. That's the only thing, that's the reason I wanted this. And if we did have a deficit, then I would figure out what the plan was to go back to the town council and say, we need more funding. That's really what the purpose of this was. It wasn't to debate whether the forecasting was correct. Because, we do it now, like we just did a budget. Now, what's gonna be difficult is, we do it kind of early, before we had this, and I kinda like this, because now it lets me look at those budget line items again and say, did we budget too
Right.
much?
Right.
So it's tough to do the forecast. I understand where they're at because they just start in September and it's tough in October to come up with a forecast. So I think Lisa did a pretty good job at least halfway through the year coming up with, 700,000. Now we have to figure out what are we going to do. We can let it sit in the fund balance and then we have a debate for 2 years on spending it. Or we get things moving and we start spending and improving the school. 'Cause I think
John,
there's-
I'm on board with you with spending that money. My dilemma was in deciding, should it be in this year's budget or next year's budget? Should we identify those things that he's asking for in next year's budget. If you wanna put it in this year's budget, I'm okay with that. When I looked at the two packets that
So
we
what do you
were
wanna
given.
do with the 716,000 then? Let's go there. Let's
Yeah,
forget about
'cause-
who
'cause-
did
wait a
what.
minute,
What do you wanna do with the 716?
we
You wanna
have
put it in the
a mo-
fund balance?
We have a
No,
motion
no.
on the, we have a motion on the table, and it was seconded, so I think we're getting far away from the topic, and I think perhaps the discussion about the proposed surplus for this year is for another time. So could we call a roll call vote on the motion to spend the $50,700 on the proposed expenditures as indicated in our, unless you wanna
Exhibit A,
postpone it.
to put this in, I mean, can you put this in as Exhibit A?
It's already in the packet,
I
it's
know,
just
but
later on.
just for the record,
It's not the record.
Okay,
so that they have to follow this. That's all.
okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Could we have a roll call vote?
Certainly. Mr. Bassett?
Yes.
Mr. Clifford?
Is this one on?
50,700.
Putting it in this year. Yes,
Yes.
I'll go along with it. Yep.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillette?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Raymond?
Yes.
And Mrs. Nato?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I believe that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Would you all consider we the people?
That is a good point. You wanna bring that up? You like.
Oh, I'm
people.
sorry.
I'm a big fan of We the People.
So do you wanna increase their
I
funding?
would like to, well, I'd like to ask, if you have permission, if I can ask Mr. O'Brien what they were looking for, a figure that they're looking for, then we'll just throw a blank
Well, they're
number.
looking for anything you would give them, so.
Well, okay, a blank is the wrong way. Mr. O'Brien, did you have a figure in mind that you need,
she said that we used to get $5,000.
was it
How
5,000?
are you going to,
Okay.
you know, I wanna understand a little more. How do you get to Washington DC?
Plane?
You get a plane?
No.
No, I'm just asking. You
Yeah,
go
so
by
They
plane?
do plane, they do plane.
Why can't we
So,
go by train, or we can't go by bus?
contingent upon participating in the, do you want me to, can I stay seated? Do you want me to?
They have to,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have to do what, they have to do what we the people says, you have to follow the transportation plans and the package that's presented, they can't deviate from it.
Well, maybe we can get, you know,
You
Air
can't
Force
even
One.
explore any other options.
No, yeah, it is a bit of a monopoly in terms of participating in the national finals. I have requested how much it would be if we took a bus as opposed to flying, because that is an option. I think we looked at it in previous years, and the cost savings was just not as great as you would imagine. So for the past few years, we've flown.
Before we go forward, I'm sorry,
Well,
but
tell
does
us
anyone want to
what to
recuse, anyone need to, I know some of us have kids in the school, does anyone recuse from this motion?
I need to, thank you.
You're gonna
Has nothing to do with whether I'm for it or against it, but my daughter's in the class, so
Just recuse.
I need to step away.
you're done.
that's fine.
Sorry.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that out of these, for this year, again, we're talking about this year, that we appropriate the fund, I'm sorry, out of our fund balance, again, for this year, $5,000, the sum of $5,000.
Is it four, is it,
For We the People, for
is it
use-
five
We the
plus the
People.
one we already have in the budget,
No,
or
there's
is
two.
it
I thought there
five
were-
in total?
I think there's two in the budget. Or is that, oh no, I'm sorry, that's We the
There's
People and
1,000
DECA.
in the budget
Okay.
right now, so
One,
you're asking to
okay.
bring the total to 5?
Would
So
that- would that-
four additional?
Okay, I'm gonna go with that, so make it a total of 5, yes, 4 additional.
Is there a
but-
I was
Second.
asking. Okay, whatever
Second.
number you wanna use.
Do we need a roll call vote, or can we do an all in favor?
Whatever you wish.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ayes have it.
So
I think I'm
moved.
gonna go with the opposed, because I wanted to look at the whole picture of how we're gonna spend.
Okay.
And, you know, there's a million things that are really needed, and would have liked to look at the whole picture.
Okay, motion passed. The next item on the agenda is the,
What? What?
did anybody want to address them? I
What's
think we
that?
all read the packet, I didn't see that anyone wanted to address them, so
This,
the rest of the items on the.
this is what I found confusing. There are things in the fund balance budget that I'd like to fund out of this year's operating, but they're not listed here. So how do we, can we address the things in the fund balance expenditure that
Sure,
could be spent now?
Absolutely.
I think
Okay.
that's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Because it was one of the challenges when.
Yeah, he was having trouble.
If I may, Madam Chair, when you asked for the expenditure plan, the point in time projection wasn't done, and then the conundrum was, do I now give you another plan to move some of those things from the fund balance? So I'm glad you brought that up, because, yeah, I think that should be, it's a great idea.
I think there were things on there were things on page 5, 12, and 13 that I wouldn't mind budgeting for this year you know, with the, out of the potential surplus for this year.
We're moving on now. Or
5, 12, and 13.
Yep.
we're on the expenditure
Because I
plan.
think,
Yeah.
this is
You're
what I
right,
was
Mike.
getting at before. I'd
You're right,
like to
Mike.
establish some, you know, expenditures for this year that justify next year's requests. So, I think up for grabs is the Chromebooks.
Yep,
The
absolutely.
technology at the high school.
Yep.
I'm not in agreement with the numbers that are used here, because as I count this up for the technology, it'd mean that we were getting 590 new Chromebooks this year, 520 purchased plus the 70, and I don't, as I said the other night, I don't like seeing us buy a huge quantity of Chromebooks in one given year, because you're gonna be facing a bill in 4 or 5 years to replace that large number, and we just bought 400 and something, I think it was. How many did we buy last year?
Yeah,
With-
you're about right, Mike.
So we're gonna have 2 years back to back. I'd rather spread it out. So I'd like, I know the plan that was submitted doesn't require or wasn't looking for money for next year, but I'd like to split this number and
You want
put,
to use the fund balance next year, Mike, for those Chromebooks and use some for this year.
You want to split, he said split it in
no,
half.
I wanna
Split
budget,
half.
I wanna budget some for next year for half
Okay. You
and
want to
and
budget?
expend this year for the other half,
Fine.
instead of the whole thing. So, and can I just say what I was thinking
Yeah.
about all of these,
Well,
and
'cause
then
he
you
wants
can.
to buy some next year 'cause he's worried
Well,
about.
this is for discussion tonight,
Right.
because we are having a joint meeting with the town council on February 1st.
So are we
I'm
acting
assuming
on this
we'll-
tonight, or?
We'll be acting on it on February 9th. This is the first time we've had opportunity to look at it and discuss it as a group.
Oh, I
And
thought
we're
we-
meeting with the council February 1st.
I thought we were gonna pass it, go to the council with it, just to have them give us the blessing.
No, I thought we were gonna have a discussion with them and then have February 9th. It's only 3 weeks away.
They wanted a plan. I thought we were gonna give them a plan and have them yes or no it, basically. That was my understanding, I don't know.
So my understanding was that we were gonna give them a plan and get them, there were certain things that they wanted us to do with the fund balance. One of the things they wanted to do with the fund balance is take up to $1 million to offset the cost of the bond. There were a bunch of different suggestions.
Right.
We were gonna go back to them with a plan. I don't think going back to them with a plan means that we have to approve or not approve the entire thing tonight. I think we can approve what we wish to.
On the 9th.
Right, all or none of it.
If you want to do some of it tonight, you can do some of it tonight, and then, you know, you can still go back to them with a plan and say, here's the things that we've already approved, we decided to move forward on, but.
Right. Well, I also, if I may,
Yes.
I also want to discuss with you, Art, and bring it to the rest of the council and committee, funding, not necessarily use reserves to pay for these, and go to the account that you were mentioning earlier, but, I don't know if I should say this publicly, but if we were to put 500,000, the town council were to put 500,000, that would parlay into about $1,340,000 that we could spend. And that would be $1,340,000 technically that we may not have to go out and borrow. May not, I understand that things change, but it's that
So-
much less that technically
so-
we
Well,
have to borrow.
don't you think if you're going to approach them on that basis, it might be better to just go with our plan that we haven't necessarily voted on to move forward with definitely?
Mary, can I?
Well, I think it's a plan, it's
Can I
not,
clarify
I'm
something?
not saying, this is the plan that
Wait a
we
minute.
agreed to. They can say, yes, no, go change it, we don't like it, but at the end of the day, it ultimately falls on us.
Exactly.
Can
I
we
just
give-
think it's
but maybe
disingenuous
I'm
not
reading
to at
this-
least, to go and say, this is what we're doing, is very different from saying, this is our plan, listen to their input, and then vote on something.
Mary,
Madam Chair, can we, Madam Chair?
I think you're reading this
From
wrong.
obviously our staff wants to speak.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Still
please,
working on this year's budget. The fund balance is another
right.
agenda item.
I know, it's kind of the same.
Thank you.
But,
No, it's
no,
not.
it isn't, because.
It's not.
It's not-
Yeah,
What,
but
what,
it's just money,
Isn't
it's a
this
pot
it?
of money at that point.
what I'm suggesting,
Semantics at that point.
what I was suggesting was, there are things in this year's, there are things that I would like to spend the money on in this year's operating budget, not what was presented in that, for suggested ideas for this year's operating budget. I would like to take some of the things from the fund balance projection and put them in this year's operating budget before we submit this plan to the town council.
Right.
Sure, so if you.
Do it, yeah.
Sure.
So that's,
I think that's,
I wasn't,
There's no
I
problem
wasn't
with that.
dealing with,
So in other words, it would take things off of the fund balance and use the money
Put 'em on the
that
other
Lisa
side.
and Alicia were just telling us we have
yeah.
X amount of dollars.
So what I was proposing was something from page 5 for technology, most of, a chunk of those items, and on page 12, the science instructional supplies and math textbooks and science textbooks, and something on page 13, and kind of shift some of these not all, but some of these expenditures over to this year's operating budget.
I agree with you.
You
We're
get
on the
me?
same page.
Yes.
Yeah, how much? How much is it, Mike?
Well,
We need to know what.
he,
Madam Chair, just before you begin, would you mind hearing from a couple of the experts around
Sure.
what I heard as a concern about getting too many Chromebooks all at once? I'm just concerned, because the further you push that out, the more time or the less time kids have the technology they need in their hands.
No, I get that.
And so I would really appreciate it if the committee, before you made a decision, at least heard a couple comments from a couple of what I believe are experts, so.
I prepared a presentation, but I don't want to put you through that again. Like, I know that I've
Pretty
kind of,
good, though.
kind of beat this to death, so, but one thing to consider too is, we only have a quarter of our students have access to Chromebooks at one time. And a big push from RIDE is to teach the Common Core standard, and we just don't have the devices to have our teachers teach to the Common Core standard. And that's a big issue. The other big issue is PARC testing. We only have 25% of our students that have access to these devices at a time, which really extends the length of time that we have to perform PARC testing. And logistically, to test 1,800 kids on 420 devices, it's a logistical nightmare. It
How many
really is.
Chromebooks do you have today?
420.
420.
Does that include the 70 that were
Plus
just donated
70.
from the
Correct.
PTO
Yeah.
and the 100?
Okay,
So
but
five-
how many do we have? How many do we need to have every
We
student?
got one at a time.
1 to 1. I'm just asking the numbers.
In order to get to 1-to-1, we'd have to have 1,800. So.
We're not looking for that.
No, I know you have to have 1,800. I know you're not going to get
We're
there.
looking to
How many are you looking for?
With this, 420.
Okay.
There
So
are
you get
no
to about
grades-
50%.
There are no
Correct.
grades exempt
Yeah.
from Chromebooks? The
So I want-
kindergartners use Chromebooks and first graders?
Not kindergartners, no.
But we're not asking for one-to-one.
No, I know
Well,
you.
1,800 is
understand.
bigger than the student population, so I imagine it included kindergartners.
But we're not asking for one-to-one. That's not
No,
our
no, no.
request.
Mr. Cook.
I'm going to go from
do
9 to
you
1.
use other devices other than Chromebooks for the PARC testing?
We do,
No.
yes, we
You
use
do.
a computer.
So, because last year when you presented to the budget committee, you said that you, between the Chromebooks and the computer labs that you have and everything else, you would be able to handle the PARC testing.
We did.
That was a bare minimum.
Right,
Not-
but you were able to do the PARC testing last year with all of the technology that we have. So even if we added nothing this year, you'd still be able to do it. So that's what my argument was. Why are we adding a huge amount? And you were not budgeting anything for next year for the technology, and I would, again, I'd just rather split it in half. But I wanted to make it clear, last year you had enough technology for every kid
Right,
to
so
do.
the park testing, we absolutely tested everyone last year, and we can test it this year. But what you have to understand is, we tested the 3rd, 4th graders at Hallowell, and the next week, we took Chromebook carts and we put them in
truck.
trucks, and we
Nah,
brought them
yeah.
over to NSCS. So it's not the easiest thing. But more importantly than the kids, having enough Chromebooks for the kids to actually take the test is prepare them for the test.
Correct.
And that's the instruction, and that's where we find, and you can actually, I see some high school teachers here.
Yeah, we
You
get
can see, like, trying to sign out a Chromebook card is not the easiest thing, and they're fighting over them. And honestly, for me, that's wonderful, because that means teachers want to use them, and they're embedding technology into instruction, which their curriculum dictates to them. They have to teach it that way. They have to use the technology in order to teach the curriculum. So there really is a sense of urgency for them.
And just by getting those 420, it really like excited the teachers, and now they're literally fighting over these devices, so.
Well, I have to tell you, it was a little discouraging. Every month we hear a request for Chromebooks, and I believe Mrs. Daigneault from the Hallowell School at the last meeting told us that the carts of Chromebooks were actually in the closet, and the teachers weren't using them. So it was a little bit discouraging to hear that, and she said she had to actually go and physically pull them out.
No, I did. They were in the music room, And I said that logistically, it was challenging for the teachers.
And you had to go and get them because you're,
I did not go and get them. What I did was I removed them from the music room and I put them into the building so the teachers wouldn't have to move them in it pouring and when it was icy. So that's why I made the decision to move them, so the teachers wouldn't be frustrated with having to move them in icy conditions such as this. It wasn't that they were not being used, there was no closet mentioned, they were in the music room.
And that's where they stayed to sign them out. So a teacher
Right.
would use them and put them back in that room. And then the next teacher would go to get it and bring it out.
I think we all misheard that, to be honest.
I think we all heard it.
And maybe it was the way it was phrased. I
So
don't-
she broke it
yeah.
up, so it
Yeah.
was spread out, so teachers didn't have to travel across
Yeah,
campus. to
because
get
I went
them.
away with the feeling that folks weren't using them.
No.
And now they are,
No,
because they
they're
don't have to go
fighting
through the
over
extra step.
Can I speak to that? As the principal of Hallowell last year, when the Chromebook carts came to that school, teachers were using them, students were using them. What Mrs. Dana was describing was where we stored them. Not that they were not accessible, not that they weren't used. They were used like crazy. We were afraid that they were going to be used too much because teachers were so eager to have them in their classrooms with their students, particularly with the anticipation of implementing the PARCC test, because there was a lot of pressure to get students familiar with the equipment. So by no means did those pieces of equipment get unused last year. Mr. Stanley and the other administrators will testify to the fact that they were used and they were used well. We just need more so that teachers can prepare their students for instruction and for assessment.
So we have a couple of teachers here too that would kind of talk on behalf of them. I don't know if you want to go through that or.
No, I guess if I could, Mr. Stanley, so if, trying to address the needs and trying to address the concerns, and I think we all have a very real concern of loading it and then not having anything in year two. How would it impact the program if, let's say, we did half the Chromebooks this year?
Well, I think it's going to stretch it out that much longer. Like if our plan is eventually to entertain the idea of going one-to-one, it's going to set us back that much further in regards to, we want to provide enough devices so that the teachers feel comfortable with them, that the students feel comfortable, where they're all starting to get acclimated with how the technology works. And if we keep on stretching it out, I don't think that we're.
Well, I guess I'm very rarely a critic of technology, as you know. I'm usually behind you 120%. But if you don't have anything in year two, but you have it this year, and you just stretch it to year two, I'm not sure how that puts a whole program behind it.
Because we get it
If
in the
it-
hands of the children.
We're behind
We
the
want-
curve to
We're
begin with.
already in
Okay.
time. We
That's
want
my
to get them
thought.
in the hands of the children.
Yeah.
I'm confused about the number because I thought I heard you say 420 is what you want to buy. But as I'm looking at this sheet on page 5, it's 420 Chromebooks is 136,000, but you have a total of 199 there with, in the next category, 40 Chromebooks for teachers at Hallowell is what I identify that 15,000 as, and 60 Chromebooks, I'm trying to figure out what building it is, I think it's for the high school, and the desktops too. So you're really looking for 420 Chromebooks plus 40 is 460, plus another 60 is 520.
Yeah, there was
So that's not new, Mike.
But you said you wanted to buy this year 420, and as I add them up, it's 520 that you're looking to buy.
For the totality, those two Chromebook cards that you see on that was part of a capital project request.
But you want to use this money to buy them.
Well,
You still want to use
Well, you
buy
wanted a
it this
total
year.
plan, Mike,
That's-
right? This is
that's
a total plan.
Everything that we've put forward.
I just want to make sure everybody understands, we're talking about 520, not 420.
Can you install all those?
Yeah.
Okay. You have enough bandwidth?
Yep.
I'm looking at this Department of War.
Mr. Lombardi?
Mike, does it help if we were to pull the town capital budget request out and request that the town actually purchase those?
Well, I don't think they're gonna,
Already said
Well,
no.
Well,
They can't.
the people I talk to haven't, so.
I thought we asked that already.
I
And
thought
they
we
said-
asked them
I
to
thought we
vote
sent
it.
that to
We did.
them and asked them to
We
do
did.
that,
They-
because it was something they did vote
Well,
on.
there were
No,
other.
they, I believe they moved it forward to the joint meeting.
Right,
For
they did.
discussion at
Right.
the joint meeting.
I
Okay.
didn't think it was off the table, and the discussion I had was that it wasn't off the table, and there's other issues out there of how to try to take care of this, that the town committed to, so.
I think, Jim, when they see that we have a $700,000 projected surplus for this year, they're not gonna be giving us that
Well,
68,000.
I'm gonna say commitments are commitments, and I'll say other things privately, if you wanna talk, because I don't wanna say it publicly. I think that we have a good shot of them buying those.
I thought so, but I don't anymore.
Okay, fair enough, but I'm asking you if you wanna take it out, because it's a concern, and we can ask them. If they say no, then we'll deal with it in the future. I don't know if that's a compromise.
Do we have a motion on the table?
No.
I'll make the motion.
We don't have a motion, and Leanne has a question.
Just so I'm on the same page, because a lot of numbers were just thrown out, and with all of donations that PTOs have done and whatnot, I believe when we asked earlier how many Chromebooks you currently have, one of you said 420 with the 70, and one of you said 420 without the 70. So just for my clarification, I'm not questioning anybody, I just don't know which one. Do we have 490?
It's 420 plus the 70.
Okay, so we have 490. I did, just for the record, Mrs. Dano, I heard what you said last month. It sounded to me, and maybe I was wrong, that you pulled them out and put them in different locations because of the setup of Hallowell. It made it more convenient for the buildings because of the area that they were in, so you didn't have to go through the ice. Okay, just want to make sure I'm not losing it. And do you need, if we add more Chromebooks, who's going to be able to do all the IT work?
Yeah, I said that, I asked him that question, he said he can do it.
That's my
He said he
concern,
could do
that's
it.
an awful lot more on your plate.
He said he was wonderful, he said he could do it.
It's a cloud-based management system, so literally, we take them out of the box, we put a sticker on them, we enroll them in our district, and then I'll never see them again, because I can manage them all remotely. I never have to physically go back, which is why Chromebooks are so popular in schools, because to do that with regular laptops, I'd never be able to do it,
And
because I
iPads.
have to get antivirus and all this crazy stuff. With Chromebooks, it's all managed in the cloud, so that's why it's so popular in K-12 education.
The big lift is the setup, and I think the last time you had a lot of volunteers, you had administrators, teachers, and so I feel like the same thing if we go forward. You'll have a tremendous amount of volunteers working with setups, labeling, making sure you record the serial number and all of that, so.
If I may, I understand.
Yeah, he does.
I understand the plan, but I just need to figure out the numbers in my head. So the 420 that you have down, and then the 70 that were donated would be additional on top of that. Okay. And then the other thing I saw in the disbursement report were 10 purchased last month. So I don't know. That brought the question to mind: is there some kind of operational budget line item for replacement or repair? Like, I know you have a service contract for it.
Yeah, the breakage has actually been really, very low.
Okay.
I had one come back that went broken all year, which is really good.
Okay.
I do have funds set aside for breakage and for replenishment, so, but I don't think that's going to be very high.
Well, I guess I'm not sure. So why did we buy 10 last month?
We were piloting a different setup in some of the classrooms. So one of the classrooms has 10 designated in a room, so that the students can rotate into that. It's something that we were trying out. It's actually worked out somewhat okay, but the carts are definitely the way to go. I think we've had much more success with that.
That was a blended learning initiative for our professional development. So we're having a couple teacher leaders. Ideally, they'd have, a class set, but having 10, they can use them daily, and then they train other teachers on, the nuances they learn.
And if you're concerned about next year's budget, there are some proposals that was entirely up to you. You have things there that you can leave that are in next year's proposed operational budget, so.
Can I ask another question?
Okay.
So does that mean you have 500?
Yeah.
Counting those 10?
Yeah, we'll
Now,
call it
this is why I'm
500.
asking.
Yes.
Knowing now that you have 500, not 420, and on this request there's 420, are you still asking for 420? Or is that going to go down by the difference? That's where my question's coming from.
It's still everything on page 5 under technology Chromebooks.
Okay,
Those two little circle bullets.
all right, that's just so I'm clear in my head. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I was just trying to split it in half, at least, so that there was some for next year and this year. Again, I just don't like buying a huge number.
Did you want to make a motion to that effect?
Well, Mr. Lombardi wants to make a motion too. I have two. You reckon?
Could I enter this in as Exhibit B? This, sorry, expenditure possibilities?
Entire document?
Entire document.
What's he talking about?
Which one are you
What
on?
are you talking about?
This one,
Supplemental, go ahead, yeah.
expenditure possibilities.
Expenditure possibilities?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
What page are you on?
I would
He's on page
5.
like to make a motion to appropriate the funds identified in page 5, 12, and 13 from the current budget, less the request to the town council of the $63,622, which I would like to request from the town council.
Second.
Would you consider amending your motion for half of the Chromebooks?
I would not,
Or
and,
breaking them out?
well, I would not, and let me give you my philosophy on it before I answer that, and then, okay, so we need, at some point, we're gonna have 1,800 or 1,600 or whatever it is.
How much is that?
At some point, we're gonna have to buy 400 a year to keep up with it, I would think.
You are
I would
correct.
think $250 a year if they last for 5 years.
Yeah, you're right,
Or
somewhere in there.
$300 a year.
Okay, well, if it's 300, we're buying 420, I think that's a proper rotation, or if it's not 420, it's 350, I don't know what the number is, but we're not too far off. And to upfront run them, I mean, I would like to see them have their computers, and then next year, I don't know why you're not requesting more, but that's your call. I'm not the expert in the area, but I would like, I mean, I agree with Mike, I would like to see a rotation starting, but we need to kind of upfront them to get there first.
Could we have a dollar total on what
May I
the
interrupt
proposal
for a
is
minute? I'm
first?
sorry.
It's
Point of
262
order.
less 63,000.
May I ask a point of order? Was there already a motion on the table by Mr. Clifford for Chromebooks?
Not
No.
that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
discussed, but
I-
don't think
There was a
we
lot of
did.
discussion, I thought there was, so I just didn't know if we had to. Thank you.
How about we take one thing at a time and we'll add them up as we go?
Well, it's 262 less the 63.
But you
For
had
the
other,
3
you had other
pages?
pages on there.
Yeah, no,
So
it's
the other
117 for the other page, I did the other page.
How much?
117.
I missed the other.
117,
106
162
alone.
to be exact.
So-
This one's on,
Can we,
For
yeah,
all
can we
three
do one
pages?
page at
No.
a time?
So it's just item number
way above
6
that.
on 12 and 13?
Wait a minute, can we do one page
Yes,
at a
it's
time?
technical.
Well, I'm
You wanna
trying to
vote on
clarify.
one
want-
page at a
well,
time?
Mike,
I want to kind of outline on each page what we're thinking of going with, and so we can come up with a total and make sure
Yeah,
we're
it's
in the.
199, 621.
Wait a minute, what?
Page 5,
Yeah,
199, 621, less the 63,000 he wants to take out.
right, so I want to know what the total
doesn't
is for that
include the
page.
44, it doesn't include the
Well,
hardware.
it's 262 for all the technology, because I'm looking at the top, it says
So
262,
it'd be
621. If you just take the 63,000 off of that, you get the number.
Just, Lisa, can you give us the number?
It's 199 and change.
For that one,
So wait,
135,999.
sorry, 99.
No, no,
That's
Plus
for
the
proposal
45,
of
plus the
the-
14.
Plus the 45, plus the
they wanna
14.
do this one too. And
So
then the
that's what they're adding
14.
back in.
So he's adding this whole page.
And then the 4.
The 4.
And he stops there,
And the
right,
4.
John?
That's
Okay.
exactly right.
So what's the total for page 5?
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. I think it's,
And the one item on page 6 at the top.
yeah, the one item, the projection, by the way.
It's the 4,000.
So what, I'm sorry, what was the total, Lisa?
She's working it out.
Less than.
Yes.
Ready?
I say
Plus
60.
the 45.
This,
Right underneath
this,
it.
and then,
Less the 63.
Why wouldn't it just be the total,
not,
less
yeah, that's,
63?
no, no, this,
Oh,
The
this,
14.
okay.
Plus the
And
4.
what's that total?
and the 4 he's asking for.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it just be 198,
Well,
999?
not if you wanna add in the 45, the 14.
No, it's
No.
262 for all the technology, I thought.
262, 620.
That's all, the
Oh,
total
yeah,
of those
John's
items, and I
right.
take out 63, I
John's
get
right.
198,
John's right.
999.
John's
You
right.
know I do this all day.
John's right.
That's, yeah, it had nothing to do with the,
You know what's
All
throwing
right,
me
so
off,
just
that
keep it at
199?
that.
yeah, it had nothing to do with the education instruction
That's
program.
the
It's
answer. 198, for all the technology.
Well,
Did you
I'm,
just say that number
this is
again,
my,
so we
the
please?
page that I'm interested in is 5. I know Mike brought up 12 and 13, and I was trying to support Mike on 12 and 13.
Well, I just wanted to do one page at a time,
Okay, then let's, all right.
and get an idea of how much we're gonna tap from each
Okay,
page,
all
so
right.
we can stay within the
Yeah.
full.
I'll withdraw my motion, I'll remake the motion,
For 198.
Motion to appropriate the funds identified on page 5,
In the top of page 6.
in the top of page 6, from the current budget in the approximate amount.
Of 198,999.
Does that include the 4?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Okay, so-
198,999.
Second.
So just to be clear, the technology request, 420, that's in there. Everything is in there except for the 622 for the towns.
So that's
Correct.
198,999, and earlier we spent 90,
94,780.
94.
Yep.
So we're at
plus
three-
4 for
we're-
the people.
Okay,
You got about it, yeah.
so we're at
You
300,000.
got about
300.
100.
Wow. I wanted to touch some things on 12 and 13, and
With
Um,
textbooks.
I
If
didn't
we
wanna
cut
go for the
Chromebooks
full
in half, we
4.
could do the textbooks too.
We
Well, in
also,
total, you got 700, but I won't even.
we also have the reserve funds too that we can talk about later if we, this is just out of this year's current budget.
Right.
So,
Carries it. Sorry.
to call it and then see what happens.
Is there a motion and a second?
Second, I second.
God, I can't say yes or no until I know what the other things are.
yeah, me too.
We're supposed to go to executive session in 15 minutes.
So,
So we can talk, right? We can talk to the motion, right?
Yeah.
Just, my hard thing right now is we're rushing, I feel we're rushing
Yeah.
through. I don't know how much the other things are going to cost off the top of my head to add them together, and I want to make sure we have supplies and that we have textbooks. And if we put a motion for roughly 200,000, we've already spent 98,780. We're at 300,000, but I haven't been able to ask anybody to do the numbers for the textbooks and things like that.
The
So,
textbooks are 117 if you want them all, the textbooks are
So we
science
can't
one.
do it.
so then we're gonna be
We're
over.
already up to 3.
Well, why can't you spend
The
4?
recommendation tonight was for 3.
4.
Yeah, but you
Four.
can
For
spend,
4.
but you can spend 40, you can spend 450.
Yeah.
Somebody put
That's
1.8% on a reserve, I don't know how you came up with 1.8, sounds kinda arbitrary to me. 1.5 sounds round, 1% sounds round, 2% sounds
I
round.
want to stay with the 4.
But I'm
There's a
saying,
long
you got
way to the end of the year.
$700,000 in surplus right now.
Well, wait a minute now.
If you're
So
within-
this is out of the current year budget.
Yep.
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
So we still have money from the plan that we're gonna give to the council.
Right,
So that's another 700, I think, thousand.
You're right.
So what I'm saying is, we're trying to just get to a point that we're spending current year balances down to a certain level, and then we're gonna go to the reserves. So I don't know, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter where it really comes from.
Well, Jim,
except for me, it takes a while to order books and get books in and get them set and ready and get them out to the students, just like it does the Chromebooks. So
Right.
for me, I liked your first motion better because we could get a total number. I'm looking for that total number of what it all,
If you want,
Comes to.
Leanne, if you want the science, instructional supplies, the math text,
117,
the text on the
162.
social studies and the science text,
Yes.
plus the 4,000, we have a little bit left over, it's only about 414. Yeah.
414, you're right in the
We're
range.
playing on
so
you're
your
about
total was
414.
414. So we're over by about
Close enough.
14,000
Close
Yeah.
enough.
from what was recommended.
Close enough.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
okay, and what does that get us?
Thank you.
I know, I still.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor with regard to the technology only, in the amount of, total amount of, Lisa?
198,999.
Could we have a roll call vote?
Certainly. Mr. Bassett?
yes.
Mr. Clifford?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillette?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mrs. Nato?
Yes. Entertain a motion about the textbooks and then
Why
we'll
don't
be.
You wanna go to textbooks, Leanne, you wanna make the
Yeah,
motion?
make the motion.
I don't have the number.
I-
14,000?
No, I got it right here.
Give us that.
Well, I didn't write it down.
Separately, I'll make the motion that we purchase the science instruction. You don't want the science instruction? I mean, that's included, right?
It's 117, 162.
Yeah.
39,000 for science instructional, 50,000 for the math textbooks, and 16,151 for the social studies books for the high school, and 12,000.
Yep.
Okay, I'll stop on
117,
page
Is there a
12.
Does that do
second?
science
That's
supplies
Mike's
too?
motion, is there a second?
Second.
Wait,
Is
do
there
one
any
page.
discussion?
Just wanna make sure it's Sherry.
Go ahead, Raymond.
Can she just repeat that?
Yeah, thank you.
That's science
Sure.
instruction. Science instruction.
Can I write, give me 1 second?
No.
Listen.
All right. It's to approve the purchase of the science instructional supplies, $39,000, math textbooks, Hallowell, $50,000, social sciences textbooks, high school, $16,151, science textbooks at the high school, $12,011, for a total of $117,162.
Now,
Is
now,
there any
now,
other discussion?
you have to take that out of your budget next year.
Is there any other
It's
discussion?
already out.
Could you
Didn't you
do,
have other
Claire, you're all ready, you're all
I
right.
know.
I'm gonna buy a lottery ticket on my way.
I think you're gonna need this.
No
any
odds of
further
that
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Fund balance, I think the thing needs to be redone. My personal preference would be that we redraft what the expenditures are and have the conversation with the council on the 1st and vote on it on the 9th.
So, Madam Chair, you'd like me to revise this according to your votes tonight?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Yes,
And
okay.
put the document together so that we can have it at 5 out of 7 else will be at the joint meeting, and then we can put it on the agenda for the 9th and handle the vote on it at the
Okay.
9th
Today's Tuesday, you'll have it Thursday, and then,
in our packet.
Yeah.
And just leave the remaining as remaining balance.
yeah, I'll, yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, so to understand what we're doing here with the fund balance document, we're taking out, all we're doing is taking out what we just approved.
Correct.
So that it'll be a lesser amount that we're presenting to the council.
Correct. And then
Okay,
we'll
thank
vote
you.
on
There'll be
it
a
on the
balance
9th.
left.
Thank you.
We'll
So
put it on the
that
agenda.
balance left could possibly go
Yes,
to reduce the bond payment?
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
because I don't want to go into the council saying we're going to spend $5,000 on the on the $1 million worth of bond that you asked.
No, no, no.
Because
Okay.
that I thought would go over like a lead
Okay.
balloon.
The next item on the agenda is the allocation of funds for purchase of technology. Is it a moot point at this point?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
point.
We're in item 2.
We just did
We're on
it.
page, item 2B, allocation of funds. I don't think we need to have any
No.
further conversation. We good? Okay.
Um,
Item,
Item
I'm
C
sorry.
wasn't even, I didn't think, oops.
I think we do, well, just the fact that we're bringing that up to the town.
We already
Still,
discussed that.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we discussed A and B.
I just want to make sure we're doing it.
Yep.
I actually went to the meeting and I read the thing to the town, so they've already
thought you
been
did.
brought up, it's already been done.
Item C, I thought I had made a motion before to table it to a later date, but I hadn't specified the later date.
I've
so-
been carrying it from agenda to agenda because I wasn't sure.
Could we move it to, do you want to move it to February?
Yeah, I don't need to
Could
discuss
we
it
do
tonight.
that? Everybody
See
okay
to the
with that?
February agenda?
Okay, thank you. Item C, Mike
Okay,
wants to
okay.
move it.
Yep.
Item D, policy procedures for use of fund balance.
Does anybody know what the update is? Because Ben and David Igliozzi were supposed to be meeting to work on a policy. So I guess, if no,
Ben's gonna be here later, Mike. so
okay.
you might wanna-
So I just wanted an update. Did David Igliozzi and Ben meet yet to discuss the policy draft? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay,
Okay, that brings us
So we,
to,
technically continuing that, right, because Ben's coming in?
because,
Ben's coming in.
are we
Yes.
moving it, do you want to move it to February
Move it
9th?
to February.
maybe we could just
It's-
pass
it's-
right over it with asking Sherry if she'd send Ben an email asking if they've met and then forwarding us the response.
So we're moving it to the February agenda.
We want to hold it in case he comes in at 9?
No, because we have to move into executive session.
I don't want to
so-
come back out.
I don't want to do that. I'd like to
Come
move
on,
it to
go,
February.
go, 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 go,
Go,
go,
go,
go,
you're
go.
doing a
Got
good
that,
job,
Sherry?
Mary.
Go.
Thank you.
Go.
Doing a good job.
Move D to February.
Yep.
Okay, that brings us to the operating supplemental capital budgets. We had moved, we have fiscal year 17 operating budget work plan. We all had the binders, we discussed it and continued it. What is your pleasure?
The operating budget that we're submitting, is that which one you're talking about now?
Yes, operating budget work plan.
I would, as I said, I think I'm on board with that, submitting the budget as it is, but I don't support the new positions. I think that's, we're going into an austere time. I don't want to bring new people on and then have to lay them off and then have to pay workers' comp and budget for the workers' comp. So I guess if we could, can we address the new positions and discuss each one to see if you still want to support them? I'd like to at least have an option of supporting an alternative.
Can you tell us us where it is in the budget?
Well,
plan?
in the budget book, it's in tab 5.
0.5 librarian, 0.5,
Yeah, I'm going.
guidance clerk, it's 0.5,
You need the librarian, Mike.
and they're all positions
Yeah, I
that
wasn't
were
arguing
cut.
against the librarian.
They're all positions that were cut before.
Wait a minute, where are those? I'm not, can I, see, John has an item on the agenda later to address consolidation of the business department, and I'm not in favor of the assistant bookkeeper accounts payable added position here. I think, you know, the budget committee has been suggesting what John is suggesting for a couple of years, and I think that's the way you might realize savings. If you don't, can't function without it, then maybe add it on after you try it. But I'm very supportive of his idea on that, but I'm not on board right now. And I have a question, because I look at this, and we're also, are we, Lisa, and I don't mean to, I'm sorry, targeting you people in particular, but are you, do you get comp time for coming to meetings at night?
No, we do
No,
not.
they get
Okay,
no comp
so
time.
you come to those negotiating meetings and you don't get money or comp time for that?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Nothing.
okay, because I was thinking, I'd rather you didn't come to the meetings and not, and be in the office, and then you don't have to, then we maybe would be better staffed during the
This is
day.
operations, right?
No, I can tell you that we put in many, many, many hours, even beyond the meetings, at night, just to
Thank you
get
for
our
doing
work
that.
done. That's
Yeah,
why
thank
we
you.
really need that halftime person.
Well, the halftime person is on page 2 of the support staff edition.
Well, Mike, what we're gonna have to do is approve it, submit it to the council, but we still have to make some changes. We just took out some textbooks and we changed a few things, so.
I'm with Mike about the new positions, not wanting to put ourselves in that situation.
However, we have to get that half-life, at least that
Oh, I
half-time
want the halftime
librarian.
librarian.
for
Absolutely.
Neil's.
Correct, absolutely.
But I'm on the support staff one now. I wasn't discussing the certified staff. I was discussing the support staff. Out of the support staff, I
We're paying all
don't,
of our bills for a $25 million budget, not including grants, with a halftime person.
well, I'm
And
not
that person
supporting.
is answering all requests for information that involve accounts payable invoices. It's just ridiculous.
Well, my fear is that if we add the position, then we're not going to have as much enthusiasm for investigating and moving towards the combined services that John's promoting, and I really would like to see that. And I don't think it's a year to go into the budget with added positions. I really don't. I want to be able to support the supplies and materials and classroom things, but I don't want to go in there with new staff if we don't absolutely have to. So that's my opposition to that.
For what it's worth, I hope you consider that you absolutely should, I think. There have been tremendous added demands to this office here, and they do a great job, and I think we tried to save money because we were in a position to reduce in the past, and to Lisa's credit, she recommended that we try halftime accounts payable. The librarian issue, to me, is a no-brainer.
Nobody's arguing the
And I
librarian.
really think that Guidance and Mr. McGee have made a strong case to restore the position once again
Think of the devil.
that was reduced for budget purposes.
And
I just think that, you know, what we can worry about next year and the year after and the year after. I think, you know, you need people to run the district.
well, I wanted to speak, the other position I wanted to speak to was the secretary, the halftime secretary in the guidance office. You know, clerk, okay, whatever we call it, but,
Well, it's a big difference.
okay, but there's, I mean, everything now is technology. You push a button and the transcript comes out, if we're in this century correctly. The guidance counselors type there, you no longer write out a recommendation and give it to a secretary or a clerk to type up. You do it on a Word document. You can push a button and print up a student's transcript and meet with the kid yourself to go over it and make sure it's accurate, and then have them sign and send it. That's things that, there's a lot of things that used to be done by the secretary that are no longer being done by secretaries, because I think you should be doing some of these things yourselves, and it's because of technology. I don't understand how technology and being introduced hasn't led to a reduction in those types of positions. So I think, you know, sure, everybody can always use a half. I'd rather not. I'd rather see us go in with a budget that's targeting other uses of the money than something that's gonna stick out and like a sore thumb, new position, jumps right off the page at you, I'm telling you right now. And
What does that mean?
what's that, Bill?
What does that mean?
What did you mean?
What is it that jumps out at the page?
New positions.
Yeah.
Will jump out right at the budget board. And I think it's gonna be hard to defend new positions this year. We had discussions last year about new positions coming down the line. So
Do you wanna make a motion?
just to speed it up, I'm gonna make a motion to eliminate the clerk typist position at North Smithfield High School. You want me to do them individually, or?
I thought you were gonna make a motion to approve the budget as submitted with the exception of certain positions.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the budget as submitted with the deletion of the clerk typist position, the assistant bookkeeper position, and the, was that it? What's the support staff?
And you said something about for now, and as the year goes on,
Right.
we'll make
Yes.
adjustments accordingly or something?
Yep. So those adjustments at now in the salaries and benefits, other than that, the whole package. And we will have the opportunity to work with the budget committee, hopefully, and make modifications down the road.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
Can I ask a question? Superintendent, may I ask you, are these positions absolutely necessary in your opinion?
From the bottom of my page, absolutely. I want to give, I don't know what to say.
Mr. McGee?
Yeah, that clerk position in the guidance office, it's not just clerical stuff that she does.
She's already there half-time, right? You already have half-time?
We split her up with, we share.
Tim, could you come over here, please?
Sure.
Thanks. So everybody can hear you. Thanks.
This was a full-time position until we got into a budget situation 2 years ago. So it was a full-time position right up until a year and a half ago. And what we're asking you to do is to restore that position, because if not, we have to share the main office secretary with the guidance person. And it's not just, she's not just doing clerical work. When kids come in with issues and so forth, and there's a lot of them, we have different guidance counselors that are dealing with kids at different times. She's the one kind of triaging everything that's there, you know? If you take that away from her, there's a half a day that we don't have a person there doing that. So now we have Mr. Pepin trying to do his job in addition to kind of managing the office at the same time. He does it. I mean, we all do it. Everybody pitches in the best we can, but it's not like it's okay. It's not okay. It's a needed position.
There's just so many other reasons the children and students are there, and it's not just for an appointment with a guidance counselor. We can't really tell you it all, but anybody that's worked there knows. We have a lot of students that come down for a lot of various reasons, and having that person in the outer office, you just nailed it. She does a lot of triage, and she maintains, you know, like, it's a huge help to the kids.
And then on top of that, if one of them happens to be out, because we only have the part-time person there in the morning, so if one of them's out, they have to cover each other at lunchtime. Oftentimes, I become the secretary.
Yep.
You know what I mean? People are surprised. They call here and they get me. I'm the one that answers the phone and talks to them because there's nobody else. Our secretary needs to eat lunch, so I have to cover for her at that time.
Thank you.
Well,
Did you want, we have a motion on the floor. Did you want to amend your motion in any way? Mike?
Can I just bring one thing to your attention? If we level the benefits like we spoke about at the last meeting to 0% increase because we know we're gonna have a reduction, and we remove the textbooks, we're only asking for less than a $40,000 increase from the town.
Lisa, as I was trying to explain earlier with the conversation that I had with Jim, would you, I tried to explain it and I don't think they understood what I was saying. Would you try to explain that? I mean, how the
Well, what ends up happening is you're still increasing your expenditures year over year, because your actual is now gonna come in less than the budget that they appropriated this year. So when you're $700,000, you're still 2.6 up next year, in theory. So I think that's where most people will look. They're gonna look at the actual spending and see what you're appropriating for next next year and see that increase. I'm just saying what they're gonna see.
Put them in this year.
Okay, we have a motion on the
But that's
table.
what we're doing, we're trying to fill this year. If you fill this year, then you don't have that increase.
Okay, let's vote this thing, let's vote.
Could we
let's vote
have a
this-
roll call vote? And could you read the motion, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Approve the FY17 budget as submitted, deleting the clerk typist position at the high school and the assistant bookkeeper position for now, with the potential for modifications down the road? Is that what I
For all
heard?
of the adjustments, further adjustments down the road. Can
Right.
was my motion seconded?
Yes,
by
I
Mrs.
second it.
Dana.
Great, I made a mistake. Can I withdraw my motion, and Mary, would you withdraw yours?
Yep.
Because my intent was to take those two positions out and add in a figure of 49,000 for 3 stipends, roughly. There's contract language in the teacher's contract that they can teach an extra class in lieu of their unassigned period for a payment of 1/6 of their salary. If it's a 10th step teacher, or top step teacher, sorry, it's about $13,000. I've heard nothing but concerns about the lack of exploratory classes that the kids at the high school have. I've looked at the course master file a couple of years ago. I agree it's a weak offering of courses. I would rather that money shift to that, and that's why I'm making a motion to delete those positions so that we can support some funding for additional stipendiary positions. If it's posted and nobody applies for it, because I heard people say they didn't want it, I've worked in a system where this was there. In my district anyway, people were fighting for those positions because the young teachers need the extra money. It's much more enriching to teach an extra class and earn $13,000 as a young teacher than to work the day shift at the school and then go to McDonald's or Lowe's or something at night to make the extra money you need to survive on. On the other end of the spectrum, the senior teachers always were eager to teach it because it added to their pension benefits as a salary. So we never had a shortage of teachers volunteering to do it. And if they don't want to do it, fine, you post the position. I'm sure there'll be a retired teacher in the community who'll come in for 45 minutes a day, 50 minutes a day, whatever your periods are, for the $13,000 stipend. But when you bring people on, you bring them on with their benefits, with their additional salaries, and then you have the expense of the workers' comp and you lay them off. And as I said before, I'll support things that go directly to the classroom and support them. And that was, I forgot to include that in my motion. And that was the logic behind reducing those others. I don't want the budget to grow at what the request is. I want those positions eliminated, and I want to use a chunk of money as a little experiment this year to see how it works. I mean, you could offer 3 full classes, so that's going to service 75 kids for an extra elective, giving them opportunities, or he or she, or whoever's in guidance who makes these decisions, could run half-credit courses and then expand the number even more. It's going to make a big difference in availability of course offerings. And as a guidance counselor, I hated sitting there with one elective to offer that student, and let's say it was art, and that was the least attractive thing to the kid, and have to stick him into a class that he had absolutely no interest in and think he's going to make an effort and think he's going to pass. It's kind of the system causes the problem. So I think this is money better spent and impacting the kids directly, and that's why I was reducing the other expenditures. And I apologize for not going over this. And I had tried to contact I had a brief discussion with Mr. Pepin the other night about this when we were at the budget meeting, I believe it was, and I did try to contact the principal at the high school, Mr. Lahar, over the weekend to find out about the scheduling there, the middle school, I'm sorry, to find out about the scheduling there, to see if maybe we could even do it there too. We weren't able to connect, so I'm only going to support what I think hearing from Mr. Pepin might work. So I'd like to try this. I'm tired of and I have total empathy for the kids who have to look at those course offerings and pick the thing they hate the least instead of the thing they like the most. So this is an opportunity. We're all about kids. We always put kids first. Let's put kids first. Let's give kids some services. So that's my argument. That's my motion.
So you're just swapping the
get
money
that?
right in
I'm
there.
swapping the
Did
money.
you get that, Sherry?
Okay.
I believe I did.
But John, I think we have a better chance of getting funding when you put that in the
Well, his
budget,
motion-
because that's been a recommendation of the budget committee for 4 years now.
Okay.
Okay.
His motion is to remove the positions and add
Is there-
$49,000 for 3 stipends on a trial basis.
Is there a second?
Is there a second? I'll second.
Second.
Oh, Art seconded it. Jim?
Discussion?
Mr. McGee, that's your area, so can you give a position on that? I don't know, the education director or?
It's about accessibility to the class though, also, Mike, just so you know.
Yeah, I know.
I have actually a presentation all set up for next week, just outlining that whole situation. You can offer the kids classes, but if they can't fit it within their schedule, they can't take it anyway. So if we gotta, there's movement that has to be done possibly with the schedule to accommodate all that.
We've done this a number of times. I did the master schedule for the building. It was the best thing that ever, I think, in my opinion, the best thing that ever happened. You had plenty of latitude. And I think, I don't understand why it wouldn't be able to be done.
Okay,
So,
we have a motion on the.
Second, just
We
move the
have a motion
question.
on the table. Can I move the question?
Ben is sitting here, so I want to move the.
So there's no comment from superintendent? You're not gonna allow it, or?
Sure.
I didn't know you wanted to have a comment.
Yeah, I had my hand up. I was just wondering, because you were moving the question.
Okay.
So this is the first we heard about it, and we have, I think, one of the best guidance directors in the entire state. And I don't think there's anybody that knows scheduling in courses better than Mr. McGee and Mr. Pepin. And so this is what we're hearing for the first time. I'm doing my best to follow it, but I can't sit here and tell you that that's the answer or a magic bullet. And so I would respectfully request that you don't act on that, because this is the first we've heard about it, and that if we could get something in writing, or if Mr. Clifford would like to sit down with Mr. Pepin and Mr. McGee and Mr. Lahar, so we could understand better what he's trying to accomplish. I think Mr. Pepin and Mr. McGee have put in a tremendous amount of time about where we're going forward and how we're going forward. And so this is kind of the first I heard about it. But if you want to put it in on top of the other things, it's a great idea.
Can I make a comment?
Actually, we need to move along. It's getting late. And we also have the obligation of submitting the budget, one way or the other, February 1st, I believe, to the town council. So we need to act somehow going forward. So are you willing to address this issue?
Yeah, I just want to say.
Well, then you need to withdraw your motion.
No, I just want to say, I'm going to maintain my motion with the 49,000 is in there. If they come back to us and say, we'd rather have just one art teacher, so that's the only elective the kids can get, then okay, that's what they can do. But at least there'll be money budgeted either for one exploratory teacher or for 3 people teaching, maybe an exploratory in history, an exploratory math, and exploratory science. So I'm going to move the question at this point.
It was already moved, Madam Chair.
Could you do a roll call vote, please?
I don't even understand the motion. to be
It's to add $49,000. It's to delete the 2 positions that I described and add $49,000 in for a line item for elective offerings, teacher stipends.
Okay, I think it was a roll call for roll call, right?
A roll call vote.
Mr. Bassett?
Yes.
Mr. Clifford?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
No.
Mrs. Gillette?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
No.
Mr. Raymond?
I'll say yes.
Mrs. Nato?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the supplemental budget. This item is here just in case anyone has anything they want to ask, any questions they want to ask about it. Any discussion? Can we move to the next item?
Yep.
Okay. The next item is the capital budget, and I believe the procedure is to recommend that we forwarded it to the planning board as submitted. I don't
I would
know
agree.
if anyone wants to make a
I'll
motion.
make a motion that we submit it as submitted.
Seconded.
Any discussion or comments?
I think we'll have plenty of time to discuss it with them when we meet with them and modify it, so
Okay.
for the sake of,
Okay,
Yeah,
all in
because the goal of it
favor?
is to put as much in as you can.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Mr. Bassett, you have the next 3 line items with
Yep.
regard to the stage 2 application, stage 1 and 2.
As of tonight, I do not have an update, unfortunately, on anything to do with stage 1 or 2.
Okay.
We can pass on that. But I'd like to leave it as a standing agenda item because they will be,
Okay.
items
Okay.
coming up. Sherry, could you take 5 off? I just haven't had time to get to it.
Remove it?
Yeah, take 5 off going forward. I'll bring it back when I have time to address it properly.
Okay.
Okay.
It's sat there long enough.
Okay, and 6 is yours as well, about special meetings?
Yep, that's just a standing item in case anyone feels that we
Okay.
need to
Does
set up a
anyone
special meeting.
does anyone need a special meeting at this point? Item 6?
So we've gone by 4, right, Art? We're good on 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did 4. That brings us to item 7, the DATCO bus contract. which is-
7, if I could make a motion to move that into executive, to discuss that in executive session.
I want to make a statement publicly. I've been accused of certain
Made a
things. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Can you finish
So-
your motion?
And then, Mike, you can make your comment during discussion. Is there a second to the motion to move well, can he discuss it if we move it to executive session?
Well, the motion is,
Yeah.
you can discuss it after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a second? It's already.
What are we going under executive for them? I mean, I know the item, but what's our?
Just for
exception?
discussion, to save the discussion for executive session.
But we have to fall within one of the parameters.
It does,
you know?
it's done.
It does,
It's
it's on
already
there.
on there.
It's already in there.
That's
It's
already
already
moving
listed in
it there.
executive.
Got
There.
that, we're good.
So are you moving that item to the end of the agenda, or?
He's moving it to be part of the discussion for executive session, I
Okay,
believe.
so we can't talk about it publicly?
There are people who-
I'd like
There's a
to,
motion on the table.
Well, there's
There
no
was a motion.
opportunity for the public to comment during this item anyway, once the agenda opens, so.
I would like to make some comments publicly. There's been a lot of allegations out there, and I want to address them. And I want to set the record straight. And I want to follow up on what I said publicly at the last meeting.
Okay, was there a second? Art made a motion. Did anyone second it?
What was the motion?
Second.
I'm sorry.
To move it into executive session?
Second.
Well, you,
You can't do it?
We already have some
Okay.
listed.
We already listed,
It's
so.
already listed.
All right.
you can move to
Ben,
continue.
they
or
can't do this?
move to
They can't
continue.
move it, we can't move it to executive session? Okay,
Okay, we continue.
okay, Mike.
All right, I'd like to start off by making a statement. On 2 afternoons, 1/6 and 1/8, I sat in my parked car across from the bus depot in clear view of all to see and logged the times that buses with no students aboard left the depot and returned to the depot. On the 6th of January, I logged the times they left the depot to begin their afternoon run, and I returned to the depot later in the day to log the time they returned to the depot. On the 8th, I was not available to log the time they left the depot for the afternoon run, but was available to be at the depot in time to log return times of the buses. It has been alleged that I followed buses, but there would be no need to follow buses to document how long the buses are on their routes. You just need to document the time they left the depot and return to the depot to do that. All I was focusing on primarily was the return to the depot time to see if it was an issue. That is exactly what I attempted to do, focusing primarily on the times they returned to the depot. I did find discrepancies in the return times provided by DATCO. I will be taking actions to obtain the reports allegedly filed by bus driver or drivers who may claim that I followed the buses on their routes. I am aware that a driver, at this point, alleges I followed her afternoon route on the 8th. I can easily document I was not even in town on the afternoon of the 8th. I returned to town approximately at 3:25, just in time to get to the depot for roughly 3:40. So I just want to start off by clarifying that at no time did I ever follow a bus, and I will be following up on who said I followed the bus, and I can easily document that I was not even in the town of North Smithfield at that hour of the day for that length of time. So I would like to address the letter that came. I want to follow up with, at the last meeting publicly, I said that I was going to meet with Mr. Mayo and explain to him what I saw and was seeing in the route schedules, and that it didn't appear to me that they were accurate or that the time put down there was necessary. And I did do, as I said I was going to do publicly, and I met with Mr. Mayo about a week ago on a Wednesday night, and I showed him bus number 13 as an example. I had done this with every other bus route on the chart, and I found discrepancies in every one. So I did take the time to meet with Mr. Mayo. I explained to him, we used the Google map to show him how the logic was that I followed in coming up with this, and I thought he left my house At the time, at the end of the meeting, he said, I see what you're seeing, and I do understand why you're questioning this. I will get to DATCO and try to see if there's a reasonable answer. So I was not nuts in what I was seeing. I was seeing something that made no sense whatsoever. When when it shows a bus leaving the depot at 6:15 to pick a student up at 6:42, that's 27 minutes, and the student lives 1.8 miles away, that should be a 4-minute ride, I see a red flag. If everybody else thinks it takes 27 minutes to drive 1.8 miles, go for it. But I don't see that as being logical. At that same route, at the end of the day, allegedly picks up the last student at 3:50 and then travels 3.5 miles back to the depot. And it takes 40 minutes to make that drive. I'm not nuts. I saw what I saw. These numbers are not making sense to me. If there's another explanation, great. But until I see the other explanation, I'm not buying into this. We're charged for any route that goes beyond 4 hours, and by my calculation, route time for the bus in question, the bus 13, was way under 4 hours. It was not 5 hours and 10 minutes in total. So that's...
Mike, if I may suggest, I'm just gonna suggest this, I don't have the time, but maybe you do. The superintendent's gonna meet with DATCO, and you have such a knowledge of the routes and the time, why don't you, sit with DATCO and just, say to them, here's what I don't understand, and let them come back with the answer, and then you get it firsthand. And I think, you know what I mean? And then you can help them, negotiate kind of, what you wanna see on the bill.
John, I showed Bob exactly what I did and asked that they do the same thing. And
No, I
think,
understand.
And I also asked that, we need to start looking at having our personnel verify these times and the route lengths. And by my calculations, even if we include depot to depot time, I seriously don't see how many of those routes exceed 4 hours or come near the time that they're billing us for. So I was I was very disappointed that that wasn't done, because I think that should have been done long ago. Just as I think paying the fee for the pre and post bus inspection for a year and a half before you really push the issue, I think that was a mistake as well. So I want to address the pre and post bus inspection document that Lisa gave us. By my calculations, sure, they're going to refund the money for the first 4 months of this year, or 3 if whatever, for the 11,000 and change. But I want the 22,529 that we paid last year, which is the amount that covers the pre and post inspection times for last year by day. I graphed out, or not graphed out, I built a table and then an Excel sheet by month, how many hours, and what portion of it, if you take 15 minutes for each of those bus routes each day, how much should be coming back to us? And my calculations are about 22,529. I also pointed out last month that I don't understand how the bus routes were getting lengthier. If you take the month of June last year, it had 17 days in it. There was 136 extra hours. That came out to roughly 8 hours a day. The month of November this year had 17 days in it. It's 187 hours that we're charged, which is an average of 11 hours a day. I don't understand how the bus routes grew by that number over the summer. And again, I'm sending for all the, and I'll be happy to share those with them. I filed APRA requests. I'm getting copies of the contracts from the other districts, the RFP from the other districts, and the invoices from the other districts. From what I've got so far, I'm seeing no signs that anybody pays excess dollar amounts. They pay a per diem rate for the bus. If there is language in our contract that requires this, I guess we're stuck with it, but I'd at least like us to verify the length of the routes, because they're not making sense to me. Because we are trying to get out of here and go into executive session with Mr. Scanzio, I guess I'll end it there, but I have in the back of my mind, I'd like some type of at this point, like an audit firm to sit and figure out how much money we're owed, how much money we overpaid, even work with a transportation consultant to figure out what the routes should be, the whole 9 yards, because I think it's a bit of a mess, really.
Vote on that?
Pardon me?
Are you gonna vote on that?
Hold on.
Anyone have any other comments, or there's no motion to vote on? and we don't normally allow public comment.
Well, you just opened the door with Mr. Clifford being able to skirt off for a half hour.
Oh, wait a minute.
Statistics,
I
Mr.
don't
Combs.
believe we did, Mr. Lowe.
With all the statistics, which we're taking for granted, they're facts and proof,
I
okay?
don't think anyone's making that assumption, and there's no opportunity
Well,
for the public to engage the school
I have a police report here that states different what Mr. Clifford just said.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lowe, there's no opportunity for public comment at this point in the agenda.
He could speak for a half hour to 45 minutes, and we don't have a right to say. And see, I pulled this report for a reason, because I didn't want to hear one side of a story.
I'd also like to make.
You're out of order, and,
I'm out of order for asking to respond to
Yes.
something, and you allowed him to open the meeting up
Mr.
and comment.
Clifford is a member of the school committee, and this item is on our agenda. So it's totally acceptable for Mr. Clifford to entertain discussion amongst the school committee members at this point in our
And
agenda.
we don't have a chance to respond.
No, you don't. And I made that clear when we concluded our public comment section at the beginning. There is opportunity at the very end of the meeting when we come back from executive
Will that be
session.
at 1 o'clock this morning?
God, I hope not.
Well,
I
I
would
would
like-
them to go on and on like this. That's what old
He's a member
patients.
of the school committee, Mr. Lowe.
No, I was just gonna say, at the end of, if you do have comments, there is a portion at the end of the meeting where you can make them, Mr. Lowe.
I would like to make one other comment, and then we'll.
Well, I thought we're
take
going to
your
close.
time.
We're going to the close.
Take your time.
Do we have- yeah.
Wait a minute, we
No.
have other items on the agenda.
There was a comment made by the superintendent that, you know, a school committee member went to the press. I want to make it clear, if you have it published on a web page in the town for everybody to read, saying that you followed students, and you know that statement is totally false and inaccurate and can prove it, and then you have nobody stepping forward with a valid claim to say it, I think I had every right to call the press and defend myself and say it's absolutely not true. I encourage you to look at the videos that have been, the meetings that have been discussed. This has been 3 months.
I'm not sure, what are you directing towards me?
Well, you made a
Like,
comment that it was, you made a comment, Mr. Lindbergh, that insinuated that my calling the press to ask them to publish an article.
I didn't know you called the press.
You said it. You said it earlier, and it's on videotape.
I said a school committee person.
Yeah, you knew it was me.
No, I didn't.
Oh, Mark, yes.
All right,
You know
all
what?
right, all right.
Madam Chair, I had no idea who it was.
Okay.
And honestly, it kind of begs the issue. Again, if you go back to your bylaws, you have a section in your bylaws, I think there's a bigger issue here.
Thank you.
And that is who's acting on behalf of who.
Yes.
If I may, Mike's brought up a few good points, but we have asked Mike to work with us a couple of times, and he refused. I get that. Mr. Mayo works full-time. I work full-time. We're doing the best we can, and we've made some inroads, and you, granted, I clearly hear that some people aren't happy, it should have been a demand, it should have happened fast enough. But to date, we have a complete removal of the pre-run and the post-run to the tune of about $25,000. What you asked about next year, if you didn't ask me, Mike, but there are other things that we are talking to DACO about, and we're gonna meet on Friday. I would love for you to be part of that meeting. But I guess I just don't aspire to going to the press to resolve a problem.
I went to the
And-
press
and
to
if I'm
protect
too-
my reputation. And I think
Okay.
you would have done the same thing, or anybody would have done the same thing if the slanderous things that were being said on the webpage and accusations made by an unnamed bus driver of I'm following a route, and when I know I wasn't even in the town at the time that they made that claim, I think you would have tried to protect your own reputation as well. Okay?
Mike, it's a good lesson learned because when that happened to me, I didn't. And shame on me. I felt like I was in a position where, and shame on me. But I didn't send this. You know what? I did my due diligence with the branch manager. You clearly have whatever you believe in. I have more detailed reports. It was not my intention to get into tonight. I think it begs bigger issues and bigger questions. I can clearly understand the committee that you believe we're not moving fast enough. We're moving, and if you want to give it to somebody else to move faster, I get it. But we have another meeting Friday. You have one notification there. Mike talked about last year. I didn't want to go too far. That request has already been made for last year. Mr. Mayo's done a great job. We're going to put together our review. We're going to meet with their schedule. We're getting there. Yep, not fast enough. Apologize. I won't do it through the paper, though.
It's
I
9:30,
will
guys.
not do it through the paper. Yes.
We need to be in executive session. Is there any other thing under this topic that we need to discuss or vote on? We are going to continue the discussion in executive session.
I think we're good.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna ask that we, I'm gonna ask that we move up our executive session to now.
You can do that.
Yeah,
Well,
unless
do
someone.
you want to move, I make a motion to move the approval of the, I'm sorry, this item to after, the one that we're speaking about now.
Okay.
The,
Item 7?
Can I?
Item 7.
Item 7, after the executive session.
I'll second that
It's
motion.
9:30, Mike. We're never gonna get in
Yeah, but
executive
that-
session.
There's a
unless we
motion
finish
made
the-
that's been seconded.
I mean, it's not gonna, I don't
Got a
think it's.
motion on the floor.
That's been seconded.
What's the motion?
To move
Item 7.
items number 7 to after the executive session, if necessary. I mean, move it
Okay,
there.
and it was seconded?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Madam-
What is your pleasure? Okay,
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Madam Chair, I move that we move, does anyone else have to speak on any other, if I could ask, if you could ask if anyone else to speak to any other matters that are on here. If not, I would move that we go into executive session.
I would agree.
So we're gonna come out of executive session and then continue the agenda on 5? Starting
Yes.
with
Well,
5?
7.
No, on 7,
And
if,
then
five?
five.
Dashboard?
We could do
Mike,
eight.
we were
No,
already on
no.
7.
Our
Oh,
committee's all
with
set.
the
I
big
think
number
Mike's
5.
talking about the purchase, the
Okay.
five Mary under new business.
Under
We
new
can,
business.
or we can move that to the February 9th.
The 5
Oh,
items under new
please don't
business.
move that to February, please, 5. We gotta move.
oh, new business, what's on new, I'm sorry, you're talking.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. What?
Okay, we'll move it to after executive session for whoever's amongst us is still here.
We have to move it up. I'm making a motion to move it up.
Okay.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
I
Where do
move
we
we-
go?
I
We'll
move
go
it-
over there, right in that room over there.
Mr. Cannell made a motion to move into executive session. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Roll call, roll call.
Oh, okay.
He's gonna go right
Could
over
you
there.
do a roll call vote to move into executive session?
Mr. Bassett?
Yes.
Mr. Clifford?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillette?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Nato?
Yes.
We moved the item up, and then we moved it to closed session.
Correct.
So we did two.
Two votes.